In a legal first, a Toronto teen has been charged with terrorism for his alleged support of the misogynist incel ideology in the daylight stabbing death of a 24-year-old woman at a North York massage parlor earlier this year. I don't think it's necessarily that weird to be involuntarily celibate when you are 17. Like, aren't a lot of 17-year-old boys not getting laid? Or was that just me? When I was younger I was handsome, but very socially awkward. Thought I was being friend-zoned all the time. I am so thankful social media was still in its infancy then, and that I never encountered something like an incel community. I would like to hope I would have been wise enough not to fall for that BS, but I am glad I will never have to know. Happily married and living my best life now. Incel ideology sounds weird. He had hoped to spark an incel uprising. Okay, so incels, who can't find the balls to talk to a girl, would somehow uprise. Edit, just got 65 replies to this comment, what the actual fuck. Edit #2, wow, thanks for the awards. I really appreciate how the article has almost no information about the crime. The title is a bit confusing. For anyone wondering, they mean that the teen mentioned carried out the attack. So not just supporting incels but actually stabbing people. Sad to think of the damage he's done. That poor 5-year-old wondering where her mum is. I hope one day he realizes what he's done and it haunts him forever. Oh God. That poor woman and her family. That poor kid, sad. Alek Shian, the driver who killed 10 pedestrians and injured more than a dozen others in the Yonge Street van attack, told a Toronto police officer soon after his arrest that he had hoped to spark an incel uprising. Well damn, I've known incels to be atrocious people for a long little while now. Seeing that they've told me to kill myself multiple times, bombarded my social media accounts with hate mail, harassed me, and are just generally assholes. But this is terrifying to read. I'm glad this little idiot is getting charged with terrorism, because that's what these people are, terrorists. Look, I'm not too shook by them, I've dealt with worse. But they've been behind plenty of mass killings, and the first ever mass shooting in Canada, also the 2ND. They're not good people and should be treated as such. Nobody is oppressing them, but they'll never see it that way. God fucking forbid they ever move out of mommy and daddy's basement. Just that much more infuriating that women are so often labeled as over-emotional when men out here murdering because they desperately want to stick their dick in something. The scariest part is these guys are publicly and deliberately making themselves into martyrs. Given incels view themselves in this light anyway, it's not going to take much to radicalize more of them to do this. The 17-year-old accused, who cannot be identified under the provisions of the Youth Criminal Justice Act, was originally charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder after the February 24 stabbing at Crown Spa, an erotic massage parlor on Dufferin Street between Wilson Avenue and Highway 401. JFC kid. 17 years old and murdering for self-perceived entitlement to essentially own women sexually. Incels are the most retarded people on the planet. I can't imagine what goes on in the mind of someone who can't get laid and thinks women should die for it. Incel. I am a 2 but the world owes me a 9 community. Incels are a largely online group of sexually frustrated men who have called for violence against women. The driver told a Toronto police officer soon after his arrest that he had hoped to spark an incel uprising. I fully expect someday soon that there will be a real Ellen James society and women cutting out their tongues because we're living in the golden age of freak-ass crazy. Edited to add, thanks to those who gave my fogged brain the correct name of the character, I came so close to ending up an incel. Thank God I stumbled face first into emotional maturity and self-awareness. My 20s were a shitstorm of cringiness and bad decisions. Incel culture could collectively jump into a volcano and the world would instantly and necessarily improve. The 17-year-old accused, who cannot be identified under the provisions of the Youth Criminal Justice Act, was originally charged with first-degree murder and attempted murder after the February 24 stabbing at Crown Spa, an erotic massage parlor on Dufferin Street between Wilson Avenue and Highway 401. Wait, what? That aside, why the hell wasn't that idiot in the 2018 van attack charged with terrorism? Alek Minashian, the driver who killed 10 pedestrians and injured more than a dozen others in the Yonge Street van attack, told a Toronto police officer soon after his arrest that he had hoped to spark an incel uprising. Shortly before the attack, Minashian also made a cryptic Facebook post referencing a 2014 stabbing attack near the University of California, Santa Barbara, in which a 22-year-old man killed 6 people and injured 13 others before apparently killing himself. Minashian told the officer that he respected for the man behind that attack, whom he called the founding forefather of the incel movement. Minashian, who was not charged with terror offenses, is facing 10 counts of first murder and 16 counts of attempted murder. Someone specifically getting into a van to mow people down hoping to start a violent uprising sounds more like terrorism than a stabbing in private. I'm so glad hardcore incel ideology is finally getting taken seriously as a threat to society. The shit I've read on their forums has horrified me since its infancy. I hope this brings light to how radical some of these people are so they can finally get some help. There has never been a more pathetic movement in human history than the incel movement. Imagine how incomprehensible these fucks would be to, say, a random person from 1923. Fucking incels are insane and need mental health. I'm a little late to the party here, but part of the reason this is such a big deal is because of the difficulty of prosecuting a terrorism offense in Canada when the offense is attached to a murder. This has been the case in most prior offenses regarding right-wing extremism. In Canada, the maximum penalty terrorism offenses is the same as the penalty for murder under the Criminal Code, and in some cases it is actually less. However, the burden of proof is often higher. Facilitation of a terrorist offense, for instance, reads 83:19:1. Everyone who knowingly facilitates a terrorist activity is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 14 years. There are qualifying pieces further down in the Criminal Code which state it is still an offense whether the accused knew the particular offense was committed. Nonetheless, the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the accused subjectively knew that they were facilitating terrorist activity. In common law, that has been held to mean that they were committing an offense with an ideological purpose. That's actually a fairly heavy burden. Similarly, commission of offense for terrorist group reads 83. To everyone who commits an indictable offense under this or any other Act of Parliament for the benefit of, at the direction of or in association with a terrorist group is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for life. Again, the prosecution bears the burden of proving that the accused was operating to the benefit of a terrorist group. Something that is also difficult to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, especially when the group is not a legally defined terror organization as per Canada's terrorism listing. The reason this is important is that it means prosecutors have no reason to continue their case after they have proved murder. The accused in Canada will not be imprisoned for any longer due to a finding of guilt on a terrorism offence if they have also committed murder or a similar offence for which the terrorism offences would not levy a higher punishment. It was always weird to me that people restricted terrorism to political/religious ideologies in their definitions, and not social ideologies.